Geschichten eines Flugzeugbauers. As I had said several times, it has always been my aim to share my work with experts in order to learn from it. It was not always easy, especially as they often did not understand that I am only peripherally interested in history and the stories surrounding it. My goal is the screws and nails. Unfortunately, the majority of historians who write do not concern themselves with the how, but mostly with the why, and those who actually deal with the technology itself generally do not write. I was always an exotic, and of course I am still treated that way by them today. My forays into history are sometimes seen as an incursion into foreign territory, and that is what they are, simply because it is not my area of expertise and shall not be. So if I deal with the history on the side, it is not to earn laurels, but only to clarify it for myself, and if it is already written, then I can also share it with others in book form. I've already presented my little play with Manfred Thiemeyer in an earlier episode of this show. Of course, he knew all the greats, including Peter Grosz, one of the greatest of the greats. If the name Grosz sounds familiar, and you are now wondering where from, I can tell you that Peter Grosz was the son of the well-known painter George Grosz. We exchanged a lot of letters, and after the play with Manfred Thiemeyer the tone became a little less cordial, which personally did not bother me. I met Peter Grosz in person 2 or 3 times, once at the Hotel Graf Zeppelin in Stuttgart, Germany, where he was staying for an exhibition of his father's paintings. We had pleasant conversations, and at one meeting I presented him with my documents on the subject of Reinhold Platz and the Persina works, of which he received copies of from me as well. I'm only telling you this now so that his review of my books in World War I is put in the right light. I was very proud of his review at the time, as Peter Grosz acknowledged me with his words. Anyone who has read my book will know that his criticism is only partially correct. With regard to the rotary engine book, for example, he criticized the fact that information that would have interested him is missing, while other information is just superficial filler. I have written more about Reinhold Platz in the other book than he suggests, and I also mentioned the use of certain abbreviation in the description of various Fokker aircraft as being out of date and established by modern historians. As for the Fokker seaplane, apart from the W1, they were not own developments or designs, but rather serious production aircraft mounted on floats that do not need to be mentioned separately. And his W1 was not an aircraft of which there are in-flight photographs, only those before and after it was sunk. And the W3 water sled was not an aircraft at all. But of course he is partly right that they were not included in the book. They were mentioned and described in the text section, but I actually did not take the trouble to draw them and include them as 3-view drawings. So either he only leafed through the book superficially before his review, or there was something else behind it. I couldn't understand his criticism of the font size at the time, but now, with my eyesight getting worse, I know what he meant. So, young publishers, bigger please if printed on paper. He also couldn't avoid mentioning that the books mentioned in the following review had complete biographies and source lists. He did this because I asked Leonard Opdyke to make sure of this, because the rumor spread by Thiemeyer that copycat Engels doesn't do such a thing. I have to thank Leonard for this. Everyone can and should imagine what was going on in the background and why the book review was signed by Leonard and Peter. But now, let's let Peter Grosz have his way. The whole thing was published in number 163 of World War I in February 1999. Addenda. Die Umlaufmotoren der Motorenfabrik Oberursel, Deutsche Flugzeugtechnik 1900 bis 1920. Author Achim Sven Engels. Address im Hohen Rhein 92 71332 Weiblingen, Germany. ISBN number 3-930571-555-2. This is the third volume in the series Deutsche Flugzeugtechnik 1900 bis 1920, and the pagination about the Fokker book reviewed below. The body of the work concerns the development and the operating characteristics of the various Ober-Ursel rotary engines. The second portion, totaling 42 pages, contains thumbnail sketches of German fighters fitted with Ober-Ursel engine. There is no information regarding airframe engine interface, propeller matching problems and performance quirks that helped or plagued these fighters, so the 42 pages is a gratuitous filler not really germane to the subject matter. The handbook information for the Ober-Ursel U0 and U3 is produced in full, and the material on the UR2 and UR3 rotary engines, while not quite as complete, is nice to have, especially the dimensioned installation drawings, full biography and credits. The next book reviewed was Fokker und seine Flugzeuge, so Fokker and his aircraft, published in my series Deutsche Flugzeugtechnik 1900 bis 1920. Same author, same address. ISBN number is 3-930571-56-0. Achim Engels had gathered every shred of published information and produced a compilation of all that has been written about A.H.G. Fokker, his factory and his aircraft within the period of the title. It is a valuable contribution to a scholar's library. Although the purpose of the book is not original research, Engels has unearthed some new material about the Fokker factory in Schwerin, including the Perzina works. He also presented new documentation, some printed so small as to be unreadable, concerning Fokker's reluctance to pay some 14,251,000 German Reichsmarks in back taxes at the time Fokker was already established in Holland. Much to his credit and to this reviewer's delight, Engels takes Reinhold Platz to task and shows how he could not have been much of an aircraft designer. Engels rightly questions Platz's insane claim that Fokker never created a factory drawing. What about the stack of Fokker D7 blueprints recently discovered in the Austrian military archive by Koloman Meyerhofer? Eatfleek would not permit an aircraft to undergo the Typenprüfung procedure unless drawings had been published. This, of course, included all Fokker aircraft. Probably Platz never got to see the manufacturing drawings, and why should he have? The second part of the book provides short sketches of the Fokker M and V series aircraft with a list of specification. Engels unfortunately repeats an error made by A.R. Weil, who got it from Heinz Novara, who invented it and subsequently became a historical fact, repeated in countless autorative works. The previous authors reported the designation M17K, Klappenverbindung, which is aileron control, M17F for Flächenverbindung, which means wing warping, M17CK, zweistielig, that's twin bay with wing warping, M17E, single bay. But there is not a shred of evidence that such complicated appellations ever existed in Fokker or Eatfleet record. I remain adamant. I wrote further on this subject in a recent article about the Fokker D1 to D4 fighters to be published by Datafile in early 1999. The book is supposed to be about Fokker and his aircraft, but missing are the Fokker W1 to W4 seaplanes and W3 Sea Sled that were built in the time period herein. A final note concerns the book's layout. It appears to be a text generated by a word processor that, unfortunately for my eye strain factor, features small type running right across the page, including even smaller type footnotes, making it difficult and arduous to read. Next time, bigger. On balance, I think Engels has produced a commendable work, and I would recommend its inclusion in a German World War I library, with the knowledge that it does not reflect all of the latest research done on Fokker and his aircraft. Full biography and credits. As said, I was very proud of Peter Grosz's review at the time, but today I have to smile a little about it. But I would like to leave it up to the listener to form their own thoughts. In the service of the cause, my books have been available for free download as PDF files ever since I started my website, which has been the case for over 25 years now. Only recently did my museum have its own Patreon page where the books and many other things can be purchased in electronic form to support the cause. The idea behind this is to allow financially disadvantaged people, especially younger ones, unhindered access, while those who can support are encouraged to do so. In addition, this way anyone who is interested in a book can decide after reading the free copies whether the cause is really worth their support. You can find the link to the page in the video description.